For me, I think
there needs to be at least one person that has an overview of the whole project. And I mean the scripts, the way it's shot. For me, I had to have overview of, is this in the budget? A complete overview of the project from writing to the last day of the editing room. So. Oh, it doesn't. Oh, is that better like this? Yeah.
No. ¿Me entiendes? La cosa es expresarme. Prefiero.
So you didn't have a choice. I mean, it was some sort of you were an accidental showrunner because you had to do all this.
Yeah, and also there is no showrunner in Iceland.
You are the only one?
No, it's basically just the one who is responsible for the project.
Okay.
And most of the times it's someone who is from the writing staff or some of the producers. But I think it was best to, I've been an actor also for 20 years, and when I have worked with showrunners that are just hired hands that are not completely 100% sure of the scripts and time and the world that we're trying to build in the series, then I always felt it has to be someone that has a deep connection to the root of the whole project. Mm-hmm. So that can be anyone to me if that person is driven to be kind of the focus on the project. I don't know if I'm talking too long, if you have to translate, or
No.
Is it okay? Oh, sorry. Yeah. Yeah.
So how about you? What do you think a showrunner is or should be?
Well, regarding
Yeah.
the overall view, there's something that happens in series compared to films, because when you're doing a film, you do the pre-production of a film, and then you're focused on that, and then you shoot the film, and you're focused on shooting what you already pre-produced, and then you, of course, post-produce what you shot. Mm-hmm. So it's like one by one. So the director can be like focused on each part of the process. But when you're doing a series, and of course when the series has a lot of resources, a lot of different elements that are combined, then there's somebody that has to be aware of what's happening in all the process. Despite that, the director of an episode is concentrated in the shooting of that episode, or there's another process going on the pre-production of another episode, or whatever other process can go on. So when you have a big crew and a lot of elements going on in parallel, somebody has to be like kind of aware of all the things that's going on to try to get them on the same creative line. Because when you start to have too many processes at the same time, it's not only a matter of the logistics, which is more like production, but it's a matter of each of those processes being in the same creative line. Mm-hmm. Regarding that, it's like prosthetics or VFX, or you have to do some changes on the script, or decisions about wardrobe or costume design or makeup or set building, set construction. All those things are going on in different places, but it's in the same moment. So to be able to get that together on the same creative line, it's very important. And usually showrunners work with a lot of other people, and they team up at least very, very, in a very collaborative way with the directors, and if there are other script writers. So it's like a point of connection with those creative tasks that they do, because you have the director on the set, but you are not, it's not possible to pre-produce all the elements that you will have on the set. That's why there's a pre-production and a shooting. So in the shooting, when the director is deciding things, he can rely on someone to say, is this the right way of doing this? Is this the right way regarding what we have already shot, what we are doing in post, or what the decisions we have changed for the next episodes? So to have someone to rely on to say, yeah, this should be like this and that, and not the other way around, that's very important. And of course, in the other process. So I think that's why there's a showrunner in series, of course, in high-level series more, and not so often like in film. It's very few. I don't even kind of think about showrunners on film. But it's because you have so many parallel creative processes that you need to have someone that cohesionates.
Okay. I guess, Ruth, you agree with most of what he said about the...
Sí.
But do you want to add something, what the showrunner should be? Or maybe if a showrunner is this creator who has the whole vision of what the show should be, what figure should that showrunner be? Should he always be a writer, or should he always be a director? What role should he have?
Yo creo que tiene que ser un guionista de perfil, o al menos alguien que esté en la sala de guión, que sepa perfectamente lo que sucede en todos los capítulos, pero hay un montón de cosas que no están escritas en los guiones, que se cuentan en la serie, que son importantes para la serie, pero que no se ponen negro sobre blanco con palabras en los guiones. Por ejemplo, que las oficinas en Mad Men sean súper luminosas, como es el lugar donde todo el mundo quiere ir, y las casas sean súper oscuras, esa es una decisión de un productor ejecutivo, de un showrunner. Eso no lo pones en un guión. Que en el cuento de la criada las 3 localizaciones principales que definen la serie sean esos edificios modernos de Toronto, en contraposición a ese vestuario que parece del siglo XV, eso lo decide un showrunner. Tiene que ser alguien que sepa, como dice Federico, que sepa exactamente lo que sucede en todos los capítulos y que esté pensando en la sala de guión, que sea muy consciente de lo que se construye más allá de la palabra en la sala de guión. Y también tiene que ser alguien, porque al final somos un puente entre la creación y el negocio, tiene que ser alguien que maneje un plan de rodaje, que maneje un presupuesto, que sepa dónde invertir bien el dinero. O sea, tenemos un presupuesto, no significa de ahorrar, no se trata de ahorrar y de hacerlo lo más barato posible, se trata que el dinero, mucho o poco que tengamos, se vea en la pantalla. Perdón.
So I consider that a showrunner must be somebody which is a writer, a script writer, or at least that is involved in the process of writing the script. Because that person must know what happens in all the episodes in the TV series. Because there are many things that are not on the text, they are not in the script, but they are happening in the series anyway. So, for instance, the decision of making, in one of the series, making the offices very light. Sorry?
En Mad Men.
Mad Men. But the houses are very dark. That's a decision on the showrunner. In The Handmaid's Tale, for instance, and there are 3 main locations, but it's also a decision has to be made in terms of the buildings being these modern buildings in Toronto, but the clothes that they are wearing are 18th century clothes. So that's the showrunner must know everything that happens, that goes on in the episodes, must be related to the script, as I said, and it's also the bridge that connects creation and business. It's on the showrunner to decide the questions or issues related to the budget, where to invest, and not really to save money and to make the series cheap, but really to know or to make use of that money so that it shows on the screen.
So do you agree that the showrunner,
That I love that Ruth talks about budget and shooting schedule, because my background is producer. What I've done most is to produce, but I've done it always from a creative approach. I've always been in the writing room of the films, like really giving a lot of notes and trying to transform the script into a film. So I think the background doesn't have to be a scriptwriter, but the person has to know a lot about scriptwriting, but he has to also know a lot about production. So it would be also complicated to address, to appoint someone to be a showrunner of a series, being the creator, but not having a knowledge of production, because then the creative decisions can have a complicated effect on not only on the budget in terms of getting over budget, which can be a disaster, but also in terms of not being able to finish the shooting, to be able to embrace all that's going on in the shooting, and to say, so we have to deliver. And when you know you have to deliver, you know that sometimes you have to do compromises, but when you do a compromise, you have to make the best choice in terms of what you need in the series. If you are in this decision or that decision, and they are both creative decisions, then which one is better for the series, for what you're trying to get on the series, knowing that they both have different effects on the schedule and on the budget. So the production background of the person who's doing showrunner is very important also.
It's interesting because as you speak, I see that as we speak, that we are using the words showrunner and creator sometimes as synonyms, and not always one is the other, or one is a synonym of the other. So what do you think? Showrunner and creator, when we see that credit at the end of each show, created by somebody, that means he or she is the showrunner of the show?
Not necessary. A veces sí, y sería bueno, pero hay veces que hay gente que ha creado una serie y ha decidido no ser showrunner de esa serie. Porque al final el showrunner, como ha dicho creo que Bjorn, es quien lleva la serie desde la página en blanco a la pantalla, ¿no? A la lata final. Pero hay veces que tú creas un creador es alguien que crea un universo, crea unos personajes y escribe un capítulo 1. Pero hay gente que a partir de ahí se aparta, y hay showrunners, ejemplos buenísimos de showrunners, por ejemplo John Wells en El ala oeste de la Casa Blanca, cuando Aaron Sorkin fue a una clínica de desintoxicación y se quedó John Wells y hizo 2 temporadas maravillosas y fue muy buen showrunner de esa serie. Entonces, pues depende.
Pero, perdón.
Sí.
Well, sometimes the creator is the showrunner, but not always, because, well, the showrunner actually is the person who gets the series from the blank page to the screen. And a creator, what a creator does is to create a universe, characters, and probably just the first episode. We have a very clear example in the case of the West Wing of the White House with John Welsh. He had to take on the project and move on with it because, was it Aaron Sorkin? Was,
Yeah.
well,
The
had to be, yes. started the project, but then it was John Welsh who had to take it, and it is a very good example of a good showrunner.
So, according to what you just said, a showrunner can be a writer, a creator, or not, but the creator should be a writer who writes the first episode and conceives the whole show. Do you think there are cases where you see a creator that is not a writer and that they take advantage of this role when they actually are executive producers or some other role in the industry? Any of you?
Well, a creator that is not a writer, I think that's difficult. But a showrunner who is not the writer, I think that's a good possibility.
Okay.
Because more and more the writing rooms are being composed of a diversity of people, not only script writers, but people that come from acting, that come from directing or producing, and they engage in a writing room. So when you have producers in the writing room, then that's a good option for the showrun, because when you think about showrunner, I was talking today with someone that was telling me to know a lot about a lot of things, but not to do them, but to be able to supervise them. And that's what producers have done for a lot of years. That's like what we need to do. So it has a lot to do with show running a show. So if the producer is in the creative room, in the writing room, it can be a very good option to be a showrunner. It doesn't have to be a creator. But of course, the creator, I think the creator of a series should be someone that's able to write and that has a writing background, because to create something has to have a lot of resources and elements to be able to set up a whole season or several seasons, and then you need to be able to get a lot of elements there. When someone that maybe doesn't have that background will create something that is not so deep and so complete.
I think it's also just important for some series, and maybe it's more big budgeted international series that, I don't know if everyone is working in the film industry or not, but sometimes in English it's called a block. 2 episodes is 1 block. So first and second episode is 1 block, and it's 1 director. If it's a 45 to 50 minute show, that's like 1 movie, kind of. So it's 1 episode, 2 episodes, 1 block. There's 1 director, maybe 1 cinematographer, and I have witnessed it myself as an actor in series that directors hardly look at the other episodes. It has happened. They don't really. It has happened that directors haven't even read the other episodes. They just focus on their 2 episodes that they're directing. And I thought, wow, this is very strange and very dangerous, because when you go as an actor through a series and for many seasons, you go through such a long and many stories in that character's life that some of the directors have no idea about. So for that reason alone, it's very important to have a showrunner that says, no, sorry, in episode 7, he or she does this or says that or does not do that or say that, so we have to do it like this. So that's the safety mechanism that a showrunner has to have also. That's in my experience.
Es que hay una cosa que nosotros al final somos como los del equipo de remo, ¿no? Que hay uno delante que va diciendo la dirección a seguir. Todos los demás son los que trabajan y van ahí, pero tienen que ir coordinados. No puede uno ir en esa dirección, el otro en otra dirección. Tú fijas la dirección. Y todos los de detrás tienes que convencerles de que tú vales, tienen que confiar en ti para que remen en tu dirección. Al hablar de que yo creo que tiene que ser un perfil guionista, que obviamente yo tengo perfil guionista y es lo que creo acérrimamente, sí que creo que nosotros al final, como showrunners, tenemos a nuestro alrededor un montón de gente que nos pregunta, en un rodaje, sobre todo en la preproducción, nos pregunta, ¿qué hacemos con esto? ¿Qué hacemos con lo otro? Tú al final tienes que decidir, ¿no? No tienes por qué saber de todo, no tienes por qué ser experto en todo, no tienes por qué ser mejor director de foto que tu director de foto, no tienes por qué ser mejor director que tu director. Pero sí que hay una cosa que tienes que saber, que es en guión. En guión yo sí que creo que es, un showrunner tiene que saber lo que sucede, como ha dicho Bjorn, tienes que saber lo que sucede en el episodio 7, lo que tienes pensado para la tercera temporada, lo que tienes pensado en tu cabeza y que no se lo dices a nadie porque ni siquiera sabes si esa temporada primera va a funcionar. Entonces, tienes que hacer que el trabajo de tu equipo brille mucho, que es lo que al final hacemos todos, ¿no? Rodearte de gente muy buena y hacer que su trabajo brille mucho, porque al final el nuestro brilla mucho más, si eso sucede. Pero de lo que sí que se tiene que tener un poco, o sea, no puede saber nadie más que tú, es del guión. A eso me refería un poco también con ese perfil showrunner, ese perfil guionista, ¿no? Del guión no puede saber nadie más que tú. De la foto sí que, bueno, a ver cómo traduces esto ahora. Sí.
There's one thing that I think is very important, and it's like you are the coordinator, you're the leader of a team. It's like a rowing team. So you have to set the direction, and you must convince the team that you are the leader. And I think in that sense, that's why I consider it important that you must be well, I am a scriptwriter, and I think that's we as showrunners, of course, we need to give answer to many questions from many people in pre-production, for instance. We need to decide what we're going to do here, what's going to happen. So you don't really need to be an expert from my point of view. You don't have to be an expert in everything, or not better than your director, or no better than your cinematographer, but you must be the person who knows the script best. What happens, you must have in mind what happens in episode 7, what's going to happen in season 3. So you must be surrounded, you must make sure that your team is excellent, so that the show is excellent, and your work too. And that's why you are the person who must know the script best than anybody else.
Mm-hmm. So we all agree that the role of a showrunner is vital for the success of any given production. If it's so important, why we are just hearing about it? Why is it so new? What was there before showrunners, at least in Spain? I don't know in Iceland or in Colombia, when did this role exist? Or of course, we imported it from the United States and their industry, but here in Spain, nobody heard about showrunners until a few years ago. Why do you think that is, and what is the reality in your own countries of this phenomenon?
Yo creo que hace 10 años no existía la figura del showrunner. Bueno, sí que existía, pero no se llamaba showrunner, y siempre había una especie de pelea para ver quién mandaba más. Y estábamos todos ahí de yo, tú. Creo que lo que ha cambiado ha sido la llegada de las plataformas. Uh-huh. Antes tú hacías una serie para el del money, ¿no? El productor. A veces hacías la serie, si le conocías además y sabías sus fobias y sus filias, además era peor porque intentabas como que le gustara la cosa. A veces que le gustara a su mujer, porque yo he oído cosas como a mi mujer no le gusta esto o no lo entiende.
La señora de Cuenca, ¿no?
Sí, esto era así, ¿eh? O sea, a mi mujer no le gusta, de manera que vamos a hacer otra cosa, ¿eh? Tú estabas como... Y han llegado de repente las plataformas y han dicho, no, ¿qué te gusta a ti, a los creadores? ¿Qué es lo que quieres contar? Nos han hecho preguntas como esa y de repente nos han dado un hueco. Y ahora, obviamente, existe la figura del productor igualmente y tienes que trabajar en connivencia con él, pero hay una persona que decide el ADN de la serie y custodia ese ADN hasta el final, y esa persona es el showrunner, al que le hemos puesto ese nombre, y todos nos tienen que seguir porque la plataforma dice que nos sigan todos. Son las plataformas los que nos han puesto en valor en ese sentido, creo yo. Lo que ha cambiado todo es la llegada de las plataformas, justamente. No sé si opináis. Ah, perdón.
I think that 10 years ago, we didn't, well, there were showrunners, but we didn't call them as such. And it seemed that there was a fight on set of who ruled. And that changed with the platforms. Because before you made a series for the producers or for the people who paid, who had the money, and you had to please them or even please the producer's wife. I've heard things such as, or comments such as, no, we're not going to do this because my wife doesn't like it, or the producer's wife doesn't understand this, so we're going to avoid that. But now with the arrival of platforms, we as showrunners are asked, what do you want to do? What's your idea? What do you like? And now, of course, we need to work hand in hand with the producer too, but now this figure of the showrunner is the one who custodies the series, so to say. And everybody follows what we say because we are supported by the platforms.
Yeah, I think it's just a very young kind. I mean, I've been working for 20 years, and 15 years ago, a serious filmmaker would never do a TV series.
Right.
You know, so maybe, I don't know, maybe, of course the American influence is big with HBO and The Sopranos, and which is now, what, 20 years old, something like that? And all of a sudden, like we all know, you know, people were taking it more seriously, so to speak. And as they said, like maybe almost 10 years ago, people in Hollywood were saying, well, we're all the good writers, they're going to television. How on earth did that happen? It never was like that before. So maybe it's such an ever-changing, I don't want to call it business, ever-changing art form, that it's just coming to, you know, very late to Europe, at least, I think. Because there's higher budgets for TV, and yeah, it's very new for at least Northern Europe, I think.
I think it's worldwide.
Yeah.
In Latin America, plus, I think worldwide the TV changed a lot with the platforms.
Yeah.
And in Latin America, at least, it had a lot of consequences in the format. Because we were used to soap operas, which are 100 episodes. So, like, that's really different. If you plan like a story in 100 episodes, it's totally like very far away from film. It's not that it's worse or better, but it's really, really different. And with the platforms, the possibility of doing 10-episode series, 13-episode series was there for the first time. And that's where we're talking about it 7 years ago, 8 years ago. It's really recent. And so with that change, it happened a lot of things. First, writers, directors, producers that were from a feature film background went into this industry of series for the first time. I had never done anything for TV before that. But then we realized that, hey, if we do a 90-minute or 100-minute feature film, then we can do a 350-minute series or a 500-minute series. That's not so far away. It's not a 100-episode series, which I don't know how many minutes are. So then you start to think about how to involve things that you would do in filmmaking into TV, but also the platforms have a lot of different things that the usual networks would have when they would do normal soap operas, because in soap operas, it was very usual because a lot of people I know did soap operas, and it was very usual that they would do 2 weeks of prep, and they would start shooting, and they would be shooting for 6 months with 2 weeks of prep, and you say, like, how come? Because they're doing prep all the time. and they would just take directors like this. Yeah. And what you say that the previous director doesn't know anything about the following episodes?
Sometimes, not always.
Yeah, but in soap
It
operas,
happens. It
in soap operas would be like, it's the thing that happens most, because
Jungle.
they would have to shoot so much material in 3 units at the same time that it would be just like shoot and shoot and shoot, and then somebody will arrange it in editing and in post. If not, it was already edited in the switching room. So the TV really changed a lot in these past years. So that opened this possibility not only of having the figure of a showrunner, but the figure of directors, writers, producers, directors of photography that come from another background and start to do television, this kind of television. So for us in Latin America, it's really new, a lot of things, not only the showrunners, but a lot of other things.
So, Ruth, perdona.
Yo creo que también ha pasado aquí una cosa, yo hablo desde mi punto de vista que ha sido el mercado español. Aquí antes nos fijábamos mucho en el mercado americano, ¿no? Eran los que lo hacían bien y todos intentábamos parecernos mucho a ellos. Y de un tiempo a esta parte, con la aparición de los showrunners también, cada vez hemos hecho series, o sea, antes nos mirábamos y mirábamos hacia allí, ahora nos mirábamos dentro. Hacemos productos mucho más locales, con nuestra idiosincrasia, con nuestra personalidad, nuestra entidad. Y paradójicamente son productos que están viajando mucho a mercados internacionales. Estamos haciendo productos mucho más locales, pero que viajan más. Paradójicamente a lo que pasaba antes, que hacíamos productos que no tenían ese ADN, en este caso español, y no viajaban nada, porque se quedaban en las generalistas, ¿sabes? Se quedaban aquí, máximo. El internado se vendía a Francia, pero vamos, por ahí. Nunca intentábamos competir con las series americanas. Y ahora sí. Yo saco mucho pecho de la ficción española porque somos competitivos fuera y el ejemplo de La Casa de Papel y muchos más ejemplos, no tenemos que fijarnos en nadie.
Well, I'm going to talk about my own experience, which is focused on the Spanish market. Before, here in Spain, we used to look at the US as an example and as something that we liked, right? Now, I think this has changed, and we, because of the showrunner figure, we can make our own series here, locally produced with our own personality. And this is the paradox, that now our series, our Spanish series, can go abroad. Whereas before, the series, the products that we had here, which were DNA, Spanish DNA, didn't go abroad. One of the instances is the Internado, which went to France. But we didn't compete with the US market, so to say. And now I'm very proud that series such as Money Heist have become an international hit.
So we all agree that the platforms change the rules of the game, not only for the industry, but for the professionals who work in it. And there's been this shifting of talent from movies to TV shows. Maybe because now there's the perception, and that's my next question, that the true talent and what's interesting nowadays is on Netflix or is on HBO or is on those platforms. Why is that, if you agree that this is happening? Why do you think there's this perception that the good shows, the good stories, which are worth seeing, are on television and not in the cinemas right now? It's because maybe the figure of the showrunner has something to do with that, because we are making shows with more personality or closer to local audiences like the Spanish ones, and we can feel related to them and we can export them in the same level of quality. Why do you think that is?
But there's one, if I can start, there's one thing that I was kind of surprised, but not in a way, that an American actor told me the other day about a film project that we're trying to get going in America. He said, the streaming services are the best thing to have happened to independent films in America for decades. So I said, wow, really? Yes, you can get money from streaming services for up to like, $8, $9, $10 million to do a small film if you have the actors to, and that's, so that is a good thing. That has nothing to do with the discussion about showrunners, but so I'm just saying that the streaming services are, I mean, it is good, and we know that they are watching international stuff, because Americans, for example, don't really want to get their own ideas. They want to get them from somewhere else. So we should just use that and say, okay, fine. I mean, it's, because in my background, it has always been, for a project, you have to go to funds, film funds, try to raise money, and from my little island, I can never fund anything. I have to go somewhere else, find money in Europe or wherever it is. And so it is now for us, it's a bit, okay, are we going to go the old way to the funds? And that way we can own our project till the end. And if it's a big hit and we sell it all around the world, that we make the money. Or do we want, safety if Netflix wants to buy the idea? But then, of course, they own it. So it's just, it's an option that I think is just good for people. We don't have to use it. I think we should be just glad that it's there. But, and with those big series from, I mean, if the showrunner comes from America, I mean, of course it's, Vince Gilligan and Breaking Bad had a massive influence on me and my colleagues, because it was just during a time in our lives when we started writing, and so it was, and we knew that he was the creator, he was the writer of basically, I mean, he directed most of it, but at some point, you have to let it go to someone else. And for him, I don't know him personally, but it must have been a challenge for him to find the man or the woman to kind of take it onwards. With West Wing, and Aaron Sorkin wrote the whole thing, but then he didn't write, I think, the last 2 seasons or whatever it was. It must be, so it's a very, very, it's hard to find that person that you can kind of give your baby to and say, will you please take care of this? So hopefully with time, the job of the showrunner will be more kind of, I mean, are showrunners credited in credit lists? I don't even know.
They have the created by or
something,
executive producer or
so that will
maybe.
probably happen in the not so distant future, I think. There will be more credit to the showrunner, whoever that is.
But do you think it's a good thing that showrunners learn how to pass the baby on?
Yes,
somebody?
I think if you have the trust from, because sometimes, because I know this because I have witnessed directors and producers fight each other all the time, for example. The director says, I need to go 2 hours overtime because I have to get this shot. You want this shot, right? And the producer says, we don't have the money for that. So we have to compromise. So in my view, it's good to be producing my own stuff. I know I have to finish it when I'm directing it, but also to compromise, okay, this scene was written on a plane. It's supposed to be on a plane that is about to crash into a helicopter or whatever you have. Someone said, okay, we have 2 hours to shoot that. Is it okay if we shoot this in the toilet? So for me, I say, if the scene is strong enough, it can happen anywhere. It can happen on a plane or in the toilet, if it's the same scene, at the core of the scene. But someone has to make that decision, to say, yes, we will shoot the airplane scene in the toilet. Let's move on. So the showrunner has to have a real responsibility to have something that is basically what a producer and the director and the writer and everyone has. And maybe not everyone agrees to that, but a producer would never agree to that. He wants to be in charge of that. But in my opinion, it has to become a profession that we learn, because it is such a vital position on on a film set for me. Yeah.
But where do you learn it? I mean, there are no showrunner schools
No.
so far at
No,
the
it's,
moment. Maybe there will be in the future. But what? I mean, some people here maybe want to be showrunners. ¿Alguien quiere ser showrunner algún día? Sí. See? So they are probably wondering, what should I do? Where do I start? Should I start, taking lessons of writing or of directing, or what? What would you recommend?
But I think it's very seductive to think about having like control, like having the creative decisions and the producing decisions and being able to say this, and myself, I decide everything. But I think something that has been in the history of the audiovisual for more than 100 years is that it's a very collaborative and a teamwork, and there's a dialectic. So I really believe in the dialectic in between the industry side and the creative side. And many times this is a producer and a director or a scriptwriter or a showrunner, or in between both you have like the showrunners, because sometimes, and I can say many times, the best decision is not total freedom. Many times to have a constraint pushes the creativity to the best level. And that's really important because many decisions that come from a necessity turn into like really huge creative decisions. And if you have that dialect in between those two, then you really grow, because you are obliged to argument, to discuss, to say, this is better, why? Okay, let me tell you why, because this. Okay, you have a point. Now, we can do that in this way, okay. And when you have that dialogue, then whatever, if it's a film or a series, it really grows. So I think in show running, what it's a risk is to think that all the rest will only do what the showrunner says and not say, hey, there's a better solution. There's a different way of approaching this, or there's a different view of this. So I think the audiovisual history it has proved that you need to have a couple of heads deciding, and I think that will go on. It won't get to just one head, and that's the only head. Of course, in the history, you also remember the big directing names, and along the history, you will find that on the side of a big director, there was a big producer.
Yes.
So I think that must go on the
And sometimes a good
audiovisual
writer.
industry. Yes.
So we have to start.
Solo digo una cosa,
yes.
donde se aprende más es de los fracasos, te lo digo. Cuando te das un par de hostias aprendes.
Esto es lo mejor.
You learn much more from failure. When you make a couple of mistakes, that's when you learn, really.
So before going for questions, Bjorn, do you have a piece of advice to anybody who wants to become a showrunner in the future?
No.
No, don't do that. Don't do it.
No, I mean, well, I don't know. We just, no. Basically, if you come from the writing point of view, if you're a writer and become a showrunner, then I mean, just don't let anyone get in between you and your vision and your focus on the thing, because there's so many many times when that can kind of be obstructed, and just try to kind of to have in your head and your heart what you initially wanted to do. But no, I mean, I'm no showrunner. I just basically
You ended up
have
being
to
one.
do it because no one else did it. But I think I still have a pretty good sense of, how I would like to have it on my work at least. So no, I don't really have any kind of key line to kind of genius line to give. Sorry, I don't have it.
Ok, tenemos 5 o 10 minutos para preguntas, si alguien... ¿Sí?
I'm going to make the question in Spanish. Es un poco como para todos. ¿Qué tanto influencia la decisión del showrunner de cómo se distribuye la serie? Porque sabemos que ahora está el formato de presentar la temporada entera en las plataformas o sacarla capítulo a capítulo, o pues cómo esto afecta a cómo se recibe la serie por parte del público, porque por ejemplo en Latinoamérica estábamos muy acostumbrados a tener un capítulo por noche, como ya mencionaba Federico, con las novelas. Entonces, ¿cómo eso ha cambiado y cómo el showrunner puede decidir en cómo sale la serie en la plataforma? Y si eso afecta realmente en el recibimiento y en el público.
No sé si te he entendido muy bien, perdona. O sea, ¿cómo convencer a las plataformas?
No, si el showrunner tiene decisión en cómo se distribuye la serie en la plataforma, si elige que va a salir un capítulo por semana o si sale una temporada entera, por ejemplo en La Casa de Papel, que fue un éxito en Netflix por tener gente maratoneándola entera, o cómo afecta y si la decisión del showrunner está ahí.
So my question is for the three of you, and it is, how does the figure of the showrunner, I mean, do you have some kind of decision in how to distribute the series? That is, how you're going to present, if you present the whole season, or if you are, for instance, in Latin America, as you said, we are used to having one chapter per night because of soap operas. And the question is, how does the showrunner decide, or do they have some kind of power into how to show the distribution of the series?
Yo creo que cuando tú vas a una plataforma y te tienes que sentar en un despacho y convencer al ejecutivo de televisión que tu serie la tienen que hacer, que te tienen que dar 1 millón de euros por capítulo para hacer tu serie, cuanto más claro tengas lo que quieres hacer, mejor. No puedes decir, si quieres hacemos media horita o hacemos 1 hora, pero también podemos adaptarlo a hacer 40 minutos. No. ¿Qué quieres contar? ¿En cuánto tiempo lo quieres contar? Tú tienes que decidir eso y llegar a la plataforma con la convicción que es la mejor forma de contarlo, de esta manera, con este tiempo, con 8 capítulos que no pueden ser 10, tienen que ser 8. ¿Por qué? Lo tienes que tener clarísimo. Cuanto más claro lo tengas, cuanto más empacada venga la serie y tú tengas una idea más clara de lo que quieres contar, antes les convences, mejor les convences y mejor para ti, porque lo tienes que tener claro. Entonces, por supuesto que lo decide el showrunner, solo tú, nadie mejor que tú lo sabe. In my opinion.
In my opinion, when you present your project to the platform, to the CEO, and you ask for €1 million to run to create your series, I mean, the clearer, the better. That is, you have to present a project saying, I want this series to have this time. I want to say this. I wanted to say it in this time. The division or the time per chapter. You cannot go into the office and say, well, maybe we could do this in 30-minute chapters or 40-minute chapters. You have to be really convinced of your project and say, I want this to be an 8-chapter series. So I think that for me, the more solid your idea is when you present it, the better for everybody, the better to convince the executives, and the better for you, even for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Sí, ahí.
Hola, es la pregunta para Ruth. ¿Qué queda dentro de esa sala de guionistas de Romántico, de la imagen que tenemos en haber trabajado en ellas, y cómo distribuye un showrunner el trabajo allí a diario?
con mucha mano izquierda. Romántico no es. A ver, es un trabajo cojonudo. Para los que hemos estado en la sala de guión, pues es maravilloso, imagínate, ¿no? Inventarte historias, pues es un trabajo precioso, pero es duro también. La página en blanco es muy dura, sobre todo cuando normalmente tienes la presión de un presupuesto, tienes la presión de un calendario, que al final es un presupuesto, porque es dinero, un calendario. Entonces, hay momentos duros. O sea, yo en la segunda parte, sobre todo cuando tienes ya un rodaje en marcha, es decir, ya han contratado a las 550 personas, ya hay unos sueldos ahí que van corriendo, y bueno, y las telenovelas no me lo puedo ni imaginar, porque encima las telenovelas es una máquina perfecta, ¿no? Cuando una pieza falla, todo el engranaje falla, ¿no? Entonces, sí que tiene momentos duros y a veces, o sea, en la sala de guión, por ejemplo, yo me fío mucho de mi equipo porque normalmente siempre trabajo con las mismas personas y me fío mucho de si hay 5 personas que me dicen tu idea es una basura, pues no me empecino, seguro que es una basura. Pero sí que al final nunca puedes perder de vista porque tienes muchos elementos de presión, tienes el rodaje, el calendario y tal. No puedes perder de vista que por muy mal que vayas en el calendario, al final tienes que hacer una cosa que sea competitiva y que esté bien. Y al final te sale, no sé, creo que tenemos algo en el cerebro que nos hace sobrevivir y al final se te ocurre.
Y el reparto del trabajo en ese equipo, por ejemplo, de 5 personas en las que confías plenamente, que confían en ti como líder, ¿cómo se distribuye, por ejemplo, la escritura de un capítulo? ¿O todos participan de la historia para crearla y luego repartes tú quién escaleta, quién dialoga, y luego haces un repaso tú del capítulo
Depende un
entero?
poco de la serie. Por ejemplo, lo que te digo, en una soap opera hay dialoguistas, en las series de plataforma, por ejemplo, en Paraíso, empezamos 5, en la segunda temporada éramos 3, incluida yo que escribía, y cogía un dialoguista aparte. ¿Por qué? Porque no quiero hacer spoilers, pero bueno, había un elemento en la temporada segunda de Paraíso que no podían los actores crecer. Bueno, básicamente porque eran fantasmas, no podían crecer. Entonces, hubo una pandemia de por medio y eran niños de 14 años, que pasaban los meses y eran niños que tenían una vocecita así y pasaban a tener una voz así. Entonces, no podía, y les salía barba y tal, entonces no podíamos esperar mucho para sacar la temporada. Íbamos con muy poco tiempo. Entonces, ahí saqué un dialoguista aparte, entonces el equipo escaletábamos a muerte, yo sacaba escaletas y había en paralelo había un dialoguista que dialogaba y yo cerraba todos los capítulos. Idealmente es mejor que la persona que escaleta, la persona que hace la estructura de la serie, después dialogue, porque tiene más sensibilidad para dialogar los capítulos, ¿no? Sabe lo que hemos pensado, se ha enfrentado a la página en blanco. No es lo ideal, particularmente en Paraíso. Entonces pasa un poco pues, sobre la marcha y depende de la serie. Lo decido un poco siempre sobre la marcha. Pero vamos, a mí me encanta escaletar. Yo siempre estoy en la sala de escaleta seguro, con los papeles, los post-its.
Los post-its.
Y improvisas. Siempre te dejas un poco llevar por las tripas con el objetivo de que sea lo mejor para la serie. Al final es lo que te tiene que mover.
Vale, tenemos tiempo solo para una pregunta más. ¿Sí? ¿Tú misma?
Ya no hay tiempo.
Hi, this question is for the three of you. I'm a firm believer that this is a creative, collective process, and it must be. But when it comes to visual language, who do you think needs to kind of like be the person that makes the last decision, the showrunner or the director of the first episode? Because things are being established with the first episode.
Who wants to answer?
¿Te refieres a la decisión final? ¿Qué decisión final?
Bueno, el lenguaje visual.
Como la foto, sí.
El pacing, el ritmo, en sentido quizás a este personaje le conlleva más que haya un nerviosismo en la imagen o una especie de lenguaje que vaya atado a ciertos momentos o ciertos personajes, si viene de la mano del showrunner o es más el director del primer episodio que va a establecer ese tipo de decisión?
Bueno, ya te digo que Beyond, que lo hace todo, pues seguramente es suya toda. Pero en mi caso, que yo no dirijo, pero sí que estoy en todo el proceso, depende de lo que confíes tú en tu director. No siempre puedes escoger al director que tú quieres. Cada serie es muy particular. Se tiene que trabajar. Yo creo que para mí el trabajo del showrunner, sobre todo, es importante antes del rodaje. Entonces, toda esa preproducción, todas esas conversaciones que tú mantienes con el director, no hay nadie que diga, impongo esto. Es muy difícil que hayan dos posturas muy contrarias, porque se va trabajando poco a poco y trabajas en connivencia uno con otro. Al final, el trabajo del showrunner es un poco pegamento de todos los equipos. Si tú no vas pegada a ese director, si tú no eres casi como una pareja, ¿sabes? En lo profesional, pero tiene que ser un pegamento. Entonces, no es que nadie tome la decisión, es que la decisión acaba cayendo por su propio peso. Y si te tienes que ver que también nos ha pasado, no sé a ellos, a mí me ha pasado, si te tienes que ver en la tesitura de tener que imponer tu opinión, vas mal. La serie no te va a salir bien. No sé qué opináis vosotros.
Yes, I think when you work in the pre-production with a director, he has to develop the visual of what he's going to direct in the set. So he has to work with the DOP on what they will frame and how they will set up like all the mise-en-scène. So when he actually shoots the scenes and the episodes, then he has to also make at least his own cut of the episode, because it's like you have to finish that. Then after he's done his first cut, then you can go back and say, this is not working the way it should work, and this and that, but he has made like the complete proposal. And of course, it's all based on what you did in the pre-production, and even a little bit before the pre-production, when you were talking about the scripts and you were talking about like the references and what you were aiming for. But it's kind of unfair to tell a director to go direct and then not to edit. It's kind of unfair to take one part of the process, because then it's like cutting a couple of hands or a limb or whatever to a person. It's not complete. So I think I agree totally with Ruth. If you have to say to a director, you're not doing that, that's forbidden, my opinion is above from your opinion, then the team is not working, and that's a problem. If you tell the director, hey, I'm not sure, this is not what we aim for, you should look for this and that, and the director says, hey, thanks for that, I was like diverging to another place, but great, then you're doing the right work, the teamwork.
Ok, me dicen que tenemos que ir terminando. ¿Sí? Vale. Pues muchas gracias a todos por participar.
A vosotros.